Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about this thing about kind of accepting the situation as it is, right? Because in IT, it is really easy and really common for us to take on this, like, this is corruption. And trust me, I get the same things, right? This organization is corrupt. Someone's stealing money. Clearly, they're laundering. They're sending money out to friends. They're hiding what they're doing. Right, people are running departments but refusing to take the title and giving someone else a title that makes it sound like they're running a department to hide who's at fault, right? This stuff is everywhere, and all people have a certain amount of, like, that's bad, that should stop. IT has a really high tendency to internalizing this stuff and saying, I can't allow this to happen. I have to do something about it. And here's what's really important. Unless the CEO or the board has directly authorized you to be that person, unless your job is to protect the organization from itself, it is not your job. We all feel this way, right? Universally, even those of us who are outside consultants, we come into an organization that's like, oh my gosh, I have to do something about these non-IT problems, right? These management problems, these corruption problems, these finance problems. And if they want our help, they will ask. And sometimes we see things that other people don't see, and we have to tell them, and that's fine. But that's where it ends. Until we're authorized, until that is our job, it can't be our job. We don't have the authority to do it. In fact, we're banned from doing it, right? I mean, they may say, oh, thanks for doing that, keep doing that. Great, but that's authority. If they don't say that, you know, we have a term for this. It's called AJ syndrome. It's named after AJ, who knows we use this term about him, and he has lost many a job because he felt that the company, the owners in most cases, were doing something he didn't like and felt was bad for the company, but he was unable to disassociate or I'm sorry, he was unable to properly associate the ownership of the company with the company itself, and he would see the company as having its own need for ethics and morals and lack of corruption. But it would be the owner doing it, and it's the owner's own money being thrown away, or the board who's overseeing the money, their money being thrown away, or whatever. The people who are in charge are the ones making the decision, are perfectly aware of the decision that they're making. They know they're funneling money to a friend. They know they're just burning cash by doing something stupid. They don't care. They're doing it because they like the result more than they like profits in their pockets, right? And they're allowed to do that. That's not illegal. It's unethical. And it's not even unethical if it's their own money. It's just dumb. But we tend to see it as something that we have to engage on, and it's very important that we understand that we can't. Now, if you were actually tasked as the CIO and it was your job to make sure money was not being done this way, obviously, then you do something about it. But you would also have the authority to immediately stop it. We wouldn't have to have this conversation. You would simply go and say, this vendor's fired because they've done something terrible. This CFO is being taken to the CEO for having worked around proper processes and funneling money, right? Those things would all be within your purview, and you wouldn't need to discuss it with us, right? So given those things, given that the board is aware, the ownership of the company is aware, and the person who is in the role of CEO and is approved by the board to be the CEO and doesn't feel like having that title, and that's fine, that they know and are the ones doing it, other than, yes, cover your ass, have some paperwork so that they can't blame you later, just in case, right? Great, that's always a good idea. Beyond that, this is not your problem. It's not your money, we assume, right? Hopefully, if it is, stop investing in that company. But it's not your money. It is not your job role. You have no ethical responsibility. Maybe you have a responsibility to let the board know what's going on, but even that is really murky and very unlikely that you should be going to the board unless they ask you to, right? Maybe have a private conversation with a board member that you know a little bit better. Look, I just want to know, if I was to see some things that I'm not sure about and I don't know if you know about, would you want me to pass that on? Do you want me to go through proper channels? Do you want me to just keep it to myself? I just want that guidance, right? Once in a while, I've been in a position where I've been on a board and I wish someone would have come to us, right? Because they felt that there were barriers in the way that there were not. So great, consider that, but you can have that conversation without divulging what it's about. And I have that all the time. I go to CEOs and say, look, I'm in a position where I'm not in charge. I see something. How do you want me to engage, right? You want me to stay quiet? I don't care. It's not my problem. But I don't want it to be, you knew? Why didn't you tell us? I get it. So great, find a way to engage without being aggressive, because this is their company, not yours, We assume you're not an owner. So don't internalize the ownership of it. So you have two choices. One, if you either find that the environment is not enjoyable because of this, and understandably, why would it be, right? You're not there to do a good job. What the heck is your purpose? To get paid, right? So as long as you're getting paid, you might be fine. But if you don't enjoy the job, find one you do enjoy. Don't just burn your bridges and quit. Just start looking for another job, right? Consider your options. Start now, because this is never going to get better. Companies that are bad, like this, won't change because they have no reason to change. Right? To you, it's something bad. To them, it's not something bad. They have there's no catalyst to create a change because they're doing what they want to do. They are where they want to be all the way through. This is what the board wants. This is what the CEO wants. This is what the vendors want. It's only you who have a problem with it, and maybe stockholders, but the stockholders hire the board. That's their purview, right? Stay out of that. So your key option, move on. That's what we do anyway, right? Don't stagnate in an environment. Just look at it as this is no longer an environment that's pushing you to use your skills. Move on. No harm, no foul. That's how IT works. That's how all jobs work. The other option is look at the things that aren't that part of the job enjoyment, right? See if you can accept that the company does things you don't approve of, but it's not your money. It's not you they're stealing from. So see if you can get over that, because maybe you can. Especially if it's the owners who are doing it, the board. No one's getting hurt here, right? That's really important. There's no victim. This is a victimless stupidity. It's not even a crime. It's just victimless stupidity. And for all you know, the board owns the other company, and they're doing this as a tax dodge, and it may be a completely legal tax dodge. Just whatever, right? This stuff happens. If you can handle that, right? If you can step back and say, wait, this isn't my problem. I'm not the CIO. I'm not making the judgment calls. I'm not responsible for the bad decisions. I'm only responsible for project managing what's left after he makes the judgment call, or technically implementing, or assisting with questions, whatever, right? Figure out what your role is and see if that makes you happy enough to stay at the rate that they're paying you. And, can you just work within the system and be happy? Don't think you're going to change it in the future. You have to accept that you cannot change it. It is not your place, and it's not within your purview, and it's not within your capability. It has nothing to do with you. It's just the role you're put in. There's nothing you can do about it. If you can accept all that, and the job is okay, and the people are nice, and whatever, and it makes you happy at the end of the day, once you do that, then stay. But those are your two choices. You have to either figure out how to stay and be happy, or how to move on to something else that makes you happy. Those are the only two choices. And it's always going to be that way. And this is just something that all people who work have to put up with this conceptually, but there's something about IT, the amount of exposure we have, because we're business infrastructure. We are exposed to all of the inner workings of a business. And so if you think about someone working on a factory line, literally like blue collar, like I'm doing parts, which I've done before, right? I know how it is. You have zero visibility. You don't know what the profits of the company are. You don't know why they brought in different consultants. You know what those consultants do. You don't even know their names. You have no visibility into the organization. So if the company is just, money laundering and hiring a buddy and narcissism and all kinds of corruption and just terrible, terrible things, actually funded by drug cartels, you have no idea. None. No visibility into that whatsoever. You're blissfully unaware, and you can go about, you can, make widgets in the greatest, most ethical company in the world, or you can make widgets in the most evil, organization you can possibly imagine. And as long as they treat the worker the same and pay you every month, you have no way to tell which one's which. They're going to be the same. But in IT, we have such a deep visibility into the organization. We see what finance is doing. We see what HR is doing. We see what the operations is doing. We know who the management people are and how they're interacting with each other. You have access to the board. You know who the board is, right? Factory workers don't know. They don't even know there is a board. They can just imagine there might be, right? Because of that visibility, we tend to start thinking that we have a responsibility that we don't have. And that is really important to understand why IT ends up in this kind of position of feeling a need to react to the business in a way that we actually generally shouldn't be. And sometimes we talk about this in a similar way in feeling a need to own the network. We'll say things like, well, this is my network. Oh, that's my baby. I built it, right? It is not your network. It is the company's network. And this is a similar thing where it's not the physical network that you're talking about, but it's the conceptual network. It's the conceptual business of the infrastructure. You're feeling an ownership with it. And it's natural for IT people to do that, but it's not really natural within a business context. If you actually step back and look at our place within the organization, unless we're an owner or unless we're a CIO, an actual CIO tasked with that responsibility, we have neither a physical stake through ownership nor an ethical stake through responsibility, through accepted responsibility. There, it is an assumed responsibility that is mistaken, and we have to learn to give that up. And this is a lesson for everybody in IT, right? You have to learn to let go of those things, and I have to fight it all the time, right? I will have someone come and do something because I'm a consultant. I deal with lots of companies. I'm often in a CIO seat, or I'm in a consulting CIO seat where there is a CIO and I'm only the advisor, and quite often they'll do something and I'll be very like, I don't really feel this is a good idea, right? Generally, it's not a corruption kind of thing. It's more of just, I feel bad decision making or lack of good planning kind of things. But I have to learn to be like, there's this emotional reaction. No, you can't. No, it's not my problem. I have to do what I'm paid to advise. And if they want to do those things past that point, it's completely not my problem. I've done my responsibility. I'm not morally responsible for it. I'm not, and I'm not a stakeholder, right? And so everyone in IT just needs to kind of grapple with that throughout their careers. And the sooner you're able to internalize it and how to handle that and make that something you can emotionally handle, the sooner just all jobs become happier places, right? And you have more flexibility to stay in places you wouldn't normally be able to stay, and better visibility on when to move on. And some people, like AJ, hence the term AJ syndrome, because he's done this a lot and knows he does it, he's able actually so affected by this problem, and yet he is so conscious of it that he's able to verbalize. He will put out these words: "It is worth being fired. I know I will be fired, but I must take this action because I feel it's so important, even though I know that I will be punished for it and the organization doesn't care." And that's a weird emotional response. It's not a healthy one, but he's aware of it and able to verbalize that. And so if you are at that point, if you actually have what we call AJ syndrome, and can identify that you cannot handle working in a situation where you can't be allowed to attempt to fix things. He didn't have to be in charge, but he had to aggressively try to fix things, even after being told he was not allowed to even speak of it again, right? He just couldn't. Then you are forced. The only way for you to be happy is to find a job where you won't find those things that cause problem, which is very difficult because every job changes over time, and you, in even the best job you've been at in 15 years, they may have a very small period of where they have a problem, and you may put yourself into a very bad position because you feel a need to try to fix that. Those are things you just have to, sit down with a therapist and work out. Is this who I am? And I'm not saying you have to fix this, right? AJ doesn't have to go fix this, but he has to identify it about himself and say, how do I change my job environment in such a way that I'm able to be happy while having this emotional need to attempt to do the right thing in a way that I perceive as the right thing, not a thing that's actually a black and white right thing.